Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
Welcome back. This is Frank Agan, founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections. You're listening to the Networking RX podcast. I appreciate you being here today. I have a guest in with me. I have Gina Gardiner, and Gina is coming to me from across the pond. She's coming to me from the United Kingdom, and I'm going to have Gina share her story, but what we're going to spend a lot of time talking about is her program called Enlightened Leadership. And just for those who may be tuning in for the first time, this is a podcast about professional relationships, business networking, and there are certainly close parallels between leadership and having good relationships and having strong networks. And so I want her to kind of share her story. The Enlightened Leadership program is a unique, multidimensional program designed to create lasting positive change by supporting personal and spiritual development alongside of comprehensive leadership development. And that's kind of the preamble for her program. And Gina, welcome to the program. Welcome to the United States. How's that?
That's brilliant. And thank you very much for having me on. I'm so pleased to be here.
Well, it's nice to have you. You and I have talked a couple of times. Every time we get on, even before we hit record here, we're talking. Could you kind of give us a rundown of how you got to this point in life? You have I don't want to call it a storied background, but it's an interesting background. It's a unique background for, doing all the leadership training that you do. Go ahead.
I started off life as a teacher, and I was promoted very quickly. I was promoted to be the deputy principal of a large school at the age of 28, and I was promoted to be the catalyst for change. So I worked with the then principal for the first 6 months, and then went off the February half-term skiing. I was a passionate skier, capable, but during that week we went to go on a long run, and the people who were leading it took the wrong turning. And instead of it being a great red run that went on for 5 or 6 kilometres in St. Anton in Italy, it was the Schindlergratz, which was the most difficult black diamond run in the resort, full of huge moguls. And to cut a very long story short, I fell about 150, 200 feet. Oh. Managed to get back to school, and then went skiing again with the school as the borough ski party with 150 children. But as the week went on, became more and more like Quasimodo. Finally had to give in the last evening, and then discovered I was paralysed down one side. And so I didn't get back to school until late May, and we finished in the UK about the 21st of July. And I was really pleased to have the holiday and think I've got 6 weeks to really recover. Because I was definitely not right. And then a few days into the holiday, I got a phone call from the principal's wife very early one morning in quite a state to say that the principal had died in his sleep of it turned out to be a huge heart attack.
Oh my God.
And so I was acting principal, and then 4 months later, I was appointed to be the principal. And I was really determined that I wanted the youngsters in my care and the staff to have the very best learning opportunity that I could give them. But my health was challenging. And I ended up being the principal for just over 20 years. And for the most part, I ran my school from a wheelchair, had 2 failed back surgeries, which resulted in me being completely wheelchair bound for long periods of time. So I've learned to walk twice as an adult.
Wow.
Now, whilst that was very challenging, the huge gift in that was that I had to create a different way of developing leadership within the school both for children and for the staff, teaching and non-teaching, which didn't require me to be standing behind people to say that's good and that's not. And so out of all of this came a really powerful way of helping people step into their genuine power, to take radical responsibility for their own performance and a shared responsibility for the performance of their team. It was incredibly successful. We were on the best 100 schools list, which is produced each year by Her Majesty's Inspectorate, and we were on that list twice. We were one of the first beacon schools. I was invited to be an advisor for the government. I worked for the National College of Leadership and the London Institute, all around the development of leadership. And there's a number of levels to that in terms of how you model leadership, how you use language, how you encourage and motivate people and hold them to account. And the school, as I say, did incredibly well. But by 2004, my health was deteriorating. I was doing a 14, 15, 16 hour a day, 5.5 days a week. My choice, work, great pain control. When I was doing something I loved and was passionate about, then I could switch the body off. But I wasn't ready for, I was told I had to retire, that if I didn't retire, that within 18 months I would be housebound. Mm. And I made the difficult decision to go, and then thought, well, what do I do now? Because I wasn't ready for daytime television. I certainly wasn't ready to stop using all of the experience and expertise I had. And so I did a research project across industries to look at leadership, no matter what the industry was, whether it was retail, manufacturing, finance, insurance, health, local government. And of course, the issues that faced them were the same issues that faced us.
Right.
And so since then, I've been using the same principles that I developed in my own organization, but in a whole range of other organizations at an individual, team or whole organization level. And this stuff works. And so where I've worked with an organization and I've worked with the senior decision makers, within about 9 months, the businesses are more productive, more profitable, the relationships are much improved, and the work-life balance for everybody has become far better, because what they see is profit, not only in terms of the bottom line, but the profit in having great relationships, which then turn into goodwill, which mean that people are motivated. The profit of everybody understanding what's the why and being engaged in delivering the targets that actually underpin that why. The relationships and better health, both physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. The profits are much, much broader than just your bank account. The interesting thing is when you start by looking at developing yourself and other people as your first and major focus, the profits come along. If you start looking at your profits and you don't think about your people, yourself, and your greatest treasure, which is your staff, the profits may go up in the very short term, but all of the research shows that the profits they're not consistent, they're not sustainable.
Right. In the materials you shared with me about the Enlightened Leadership Program, you talk about the costs of poor leadership.
Yeah.
Business, society, personal.
It's huge. It is absolutely. When I started to do the research, I mean, my school was in Romford, which is quite an urban area just on the outskirts of London. And one of the children's favourite phrases was gobsmacked, which means that, your brain can't take it in.
Okay.
And I was gobsmacked by the statistics, which are incredibly stark. In the UK alone, £70 billion lost days because of stress. 140 billion, they think in excess of that, for what they describe as presenteeism, which is people who are coming into work, but because they're stressed, they aren't firing on all cylinders.
Right.
The cost of lost continuity of your reputation because customer service suffers. And that's without the cost in terms of your personal health if you're stressed, and to relationships. And then if there are broken relationships, the cost, particularly if you have children from homes where parents have separated, are far more likely to live in poverty, are far more likely to do less well at school. That's not because single parents aren't doing a good job. It's simply because the extra strain or the lack of resources that those children have at their disposal is going to be greater.
Right. I find it interesting. I think of Darwinism, social Darwinism, and why is it that this poor leadership just doesn't, those businesses just don't go extinct? You would think that just, great leaders would just surpass, and they do in many respects, but we still have this ongoing deficit in leadership. And you would think in time, and maybe it's working itself through. I don't know. It's hard to tell.
I think it's a complex thing, and it's very easy to become very simplistic and say it's because of this or that.
Right.
I think if you're a small business, the statistics for new businesses going out of business within the first 2 years is quite heavy.
Yeah.
I think small businesses, if they're poor leadership, they go to the wall very quickly. And then given what's gone on in 2020, as we look back, there are many businesses where they will not survive the pandemic. And those businesses where they've got poor leadership are, I think, going to be particularly vulnerable. But I also think that, the great monoliths, the local government, the political leaders, those established businesses that have been there for years, they're able to almost live on their reputation for a time. It's a bit like trying to turn a tank around, that the past momentum keeps them going for quite a while. But there is huge cost, and many of my individual clients have come because they're stressed and anxious and depressed, and it's as a result of the poor leadership that they are working within. And I think local government, for example, isn't going to go away, but within that huge environment there's going to be a significant difference in the quality of leadership department by department, which keeps some things going well, but otherwise not. But I think I believe we're moving into a new era of consciousness. And I think we're going to see that those leaders who start to live and work and be in an enlightened space, in an enlightened way, will find a route through all of the challenges that we've had. And they will do that, and they will do it well, and they will succeed. That's not to say it will be easy, particularly in these next few months and years. We were talking before this interview, we have no idea how long the immediate effects of the pandemic and lockdown and all of those restrictions are going to take place. It could be a year, 18 months, 2 years, it could be longer.
Right.
And I think those businesses who are trying to operate in the same way as they did pre-COVID, but in this middle of COVID and moving forward, aren't going to survive because it requires creative thinking. And I do believe that one of the big pluses of enlightened leadership is how you embrace the experience, expertise, skill, enthusiasms of the whole. One person alone can't solve this. But
Right.
if you in your business, if you've got staff, if you engage them, and if they understand the why, if they are really, they recognize that their contribution is welcomed and valued, if you have a culture where it's a developmental culture and not a blame culture, those organizations are going to be able to be their most creative and they're going to find the best solutions. And as we said just a bit earlier before we started recording, more millionaires are made during times of downturn than they ever are in times of boom.
Yeah.
Why? Because they are open to the possibilities, because they come from a place of, I'm going to succeed and I'm going to look for opportunities. And so the blinkers are off. They're not so frightened that they're poleaxed about how am I going to do this and I can't and I don't know what to do. But they are open to the fact, well, I might not know all of the answers, but actually I've got a very, very clear sense of purpose. I know what my why is, and I'm engaging everybody that works with me to have that same passion about that why. And we're going to work together. Now, I've had people say to me, but how can you get passionate about cleaning windows or making car parts? And for me, it's about, okay, we might be talking about making car parts and manufacturing car parts, but that's not the why. That's what you do. It's not the why you do it. And when you start to analyze the why, well, if you're making the very best car parts, which are going to be reliable and that you're going to give great service, that you are providing that service, you're giving freedom to people who can then go and travel, you're giving financial security and freedom to the people who work with you, then if you can also look for opportunities to do good and to run your business, then your why becomes great. And I was talking to Paul Dunn, who's part of B1G1, which is an organization where any organization, however big, can actually engage with paying it forward, if you like, and helping other people. And I think that makes a difference to everybody within the organization. So there are lots of ways that you can engage your people in the why, in the making a positive difference. But it has to start with the leader, and leadership starts with you. No good saying, do what I say, and then not modeling that behavior.
Right.
Your voice has got to be authentic. You've got to, I believe, it's absolutely imperative that you walk your talk. And for me, enlightened leadership is about having the integrity to do that. The integrity to say, I don't know, but I'll find out, or you can help me find out. It's about having compassion and caring about the people who work with you and for you, and also the wider community. And it's about having the courage to do what's right, to admit if you don't know, to admit if you've made a mistake, and to use that as learning. For me, the only failures are the failure to try and the failure to learn if things don't go quite right.
Gotcha. Well, this is I've never been so quiet on a podcast. I'm just sitting here listening, and I'm here, everybody. I am here. I'm just totally listening. No, that was awesome, and I think, heading into 2021, and as we talked about before we hit record, we might be looking till 2022 or beyond until we're kind of clear of this. And I don't know what that means, to be perfectly honest. I was listening to somebody and they were talking and they're saying, the coronavirus is much like the common cold and it probably may never go away.
Yes.
It'll just get less powerful, because that's just how viruses work. They need their host to stay alive in order for them to propagate. And so this message is really timely, certainly for me. And I like to think I'm a leader. I try to be a leader. That's my intent. But there are a lot of people who are listening who are certainly leaders, and they need this message. I want to shift gears here before we run out of time. I want you to talk about your Enlightened Leadership Program, because I know there are people out there that would certainly be interested, and I do want to make the point that, yes, you are in the UK, but many, many of your clients are here stateside in the United States. So it's not I can't work with her. Yes, you can. You've introduced me to people who are out on the West Coast of the United States, which is 8 hours difference than you, and you are working with those people as well. So share with us about your Enlightened Leadership Program.
The Enlightened Leadership Program is a 10-month program. And the reason for that is I discovered that between 9 and 10 months is when things become so embedded that the new way of being stays even when there's a crisis. Because the research shows that most leadership programs within 6 months, you're using between 7 and 10%. And that's because there's not been the work done on the individual. So a big part of the Enlightened Leadership Program is about doing the work on you. You are the common denominator that you take into every moment of your life. And this is about leadership for life. So leading your own life, leading within the family, within your friends, within the society, within your business. And so the program has two very distinct strands which knit together. One is about all of the development work for you, and the other is then how you utilize that to help other people, so that they take radical responsibility for their performance, so that they are motivated, so that they understand the culture, that they have the same values, and understand that it's not just about having a poster on the wall that says we've done our core values, but actually the way in which people behave belies that. It's about how you incorporate that within your organization so it becomes a thread that runs through every department, or if you're a small organization, with every member of staff. And that's been accredited. It's been accredited by the Continuous Professional Development Standards Office in the UK. So the program is delivered all online. You work with a facilitator, a leadership facilitator, throughout the program. Before the program, setting up the project that you're going to work on and making sure that what you want to get out of the program and how to best do that. And then you work with them on a monthly basis. And at the end, there's the opportunity to actually get your accreditation with your leadership facilitator. But then there's a series of videos, PowerPoint presentations, books, themed journals, and activities which drop in each month for you to do self-study. They're all produced as video, as audio, and as written material, so whichever suits you. If you want to listen to the stuff in the car on the way to work, then you can do that. And they build up into helping you really take radical responsibility for yourself as a leader. So many leaders have been promoted because they're good at what they do, good salespeople or good technicians. But actually leading other people is a completely different skill set.
Right.
So many business owners that I've worked with and that I hear of are so busy working in their business that they fail to work on their business. And part of that is because they're unable to delegate effectively, either because they're frightened that it won't get done properly. You know, it's better to do it myself because at least then I know it's done well. That style of leadership leads to failure, burnout, and all sorts of problems. But you're not growing a thinking staff. And so this is about how do you work on yourself, but then how do you support other people to become ready to think, ready to engage in a really productive way. And the 10 months is there, as I say, because that's then embedded. There is another option. People can do the accelerated program and work with me, and that's a slightly different program in the sense that it's absolutely bespoke to you. But the program, the Enlightened Leadership program, designed that anyone that, so long as you speak English, it's accessible, that it can be done from wherever in the world. We use Zoom and Skype and things like that or WhatsApp for the one-to-ones. There's also group coaching with me on the 10-month program, or individual work with me if you come onto the accelerated program. But we are moving into a new era where those people who want to not only have a profitable business, and I mean profitable in the widest sense of the word, but also want to leave a living legacy, a positive one, then it's going to be the enlightened leaders who survive and thrive and who act as the beacon of light for other people to do the same.
Good. Okay. I guess as a follow-up, I guess a closing question, how would people get a hold of you? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
They can go to one of the two websites, which is genuinely-you.com or enlightenedleadership.co. But if they want to email me at Gina, Gina, at Gina at genuinely-you.com. I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me there. There's an Enlightened Leadership group on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I'm pretty easy to find. There's YouTube, Genuinely You. There's lots of places. But the best thing, if you want to contact me directly, Gina at genuinely-you.com. Okay,
I will get that in the show notes.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I really appreciate your time here today. This has been fascinating. I have the luxury of being able to, well, anybody can listen to this over and over again, but I'll probably listen to it 2 or 3 times before I'm done editing it. And I know I'm going to pick up more nuggets through this whole thing. So I really appreciate your time.
Oh, it's been my absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AMSPIRIT.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.